Hi there, welcome back to Northlight Photographic Workshops, and welcome back to another edition of Salt Printing with Bill. In this episode, we're going to have a little bit of fun in that we're not going to be printing in our normal way, because we're not going to be using our normal LED box to make our prints. We're going to use the sun. That's right, the #1 source of UV in the world is right up there, out of this world. And we're going to go into the workshop right now. We're going to coat a piece of paper, we're going to sensitize it, put it in a print frame with a negative, and we're going to make a print. So come on, let's go. So the first thing that we need to do in this process is to sensitize the paper, or to coat it with sensitizer before we coat it with silver nitrate. Now it's kind of a two-part system here. We don't mix the two of those together because then you'd get a really weird chemical reaction and it kind of turns into mush. So you don't want to be doing that. You're going to want to use your sensitizer first. Now, this is from a kit from Bostic and Sullivan, but I have mixed up my own sensitizer in here because I've exhausted the first batch and I've mixed my own. Now the sensitizer is basically my mixture that I use, which comes from Christine Anderson, by the way. Christina Z. Anderson makes a great book on this called the platinum printing, or the salted paper printing Bible, basically, I think it is. But anyway, this is a formula that I got out of there, and it's basically a mixture of ammonium chloride, ammonium citrate, a little bit of gelatin in there, and then also water, of course. The gelatin you have to bloom a little bit first, and then you have to heat it to make it go into a complete liquid gelatin. But it's really good to do. I like the gelatin mixture because it gives you a nice, smooth, even coat on the paper. At least that's just my opinion. So this is my own in here, and what I like to do is I wet the brush ahead of time. I've already done that with this, and then I shake it out and dab it. And then I will take out some of the sensitizer. Sometimes I'll just use a shot glass if I want to do this, but I kind of know how much I'm going to need to coat this, so I just splotch out about three eyedroppers full there, and then I'm going to brush it in. Now what I want to do is I just kind of want to get a nice even coat completely across the paper if I can, and you can see I go both ways on this thing, so kind of try to get a nice even solution coating the paper. And I'm just using the weight of the brush here. And I can look on the side, and from the side, and I can see where I'm coated, and it's just nice and evenly shiny. So there, I think I'm there. Now what I do is I'll go off and wash my brush first, bring it back, let this sit and dry, and then I'll come back and I will coat this with silver nitrate, and then it will be ready to go into the print frame for printing. So let me set this off to the side here. The negative that I'm going to use is an image that I shot in Iceland several years ago in this sunroom on the factory there. It's an interesting room because it's become used now. They filmed part of the Justice League movie there. And this is in the movie. But anyway, it's a cool shot. I have printed it through, it's a digital negative. I've printed it through a curve that I've made specifically for the salt printing process. And it works both on my my digital LED printer here, and as well as working with the sun. So anyway, I'll come back to you when this is dry and this is washed, and then we will coat it with silver nitrate and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so this is good and dry now, and what I've done is I've gone and I've made a little dot in the corner here, right at the edge of the negative, so I know kind of the area to coat with silver nitrate. So it's ready to coat. I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to close up my sensitizer, and I'm now going to open up my silver nitrate. Now this is a 12% solution of silver nitrate. I've got a specific dropper for it. As you can see, it's stained black in there. Now what I'm going to do is drop 2 dollops of that in there, and then I'm going to take my brush and very carefully I'm going to kind of follow the imaginary line between my dots here. And I know I'm going to get over brushing, but I'm just trying not to be overly sloppy with it. Now very often I will mask the image myself. I'll mask the image with tape. because I like a really nice clean edge, but for this purpose here, I'm just going to be doing it freehand and getting my coating right out to the line where, like I say, the imaginary line between the dots. There, I can see I've got a really nice coating on there. Last brush, just the weight of the brush, perfect. Now, I'm going to let this dry again, and while I'm letting this dry, I'm going to wash the brush out. I'll be back as soon as this is dry, and we will put it together with the negative in the print frame, and we'll take it outside and make a print. Okay, so the silver nitrate is dry on here, and it's now time to put the negative together with it in the print frame. So I'm going to pull the print frame out here and set it off to the side here, make sure that everything's out of there. And I'm going to take the negative and I'm going to put it together, and I'm just going to put it where the dots are on my paper. You can see there, got them well covered, and it's time to put it down face down into the print frame. Okay, it's time to go. We're going to take it out into the sunlight, all right? Let's go. So I've got the print frame and we have the negative attached to it. I'm keeping it kind of dark right now along my chest. And so what's going to happen here is I'm going to put this down. You're going to be able to see, I'm going to time it probably about 3 minutes is where it will be, but watch on this other camera as it's happening, because you're going to start seeing it developing itself really quick. Now, as I mentioned before in the previous videos, this is a printing out process, which means that it develops as it goes. So here we go, watch. So you can already see it's starting to change color here. And it's going to take a couple of minutes for it to get fully black here, but it's working really quick, as you can see. So, and what happens with this process that's really interesting is that it is a self-masking process. So the darker areas, as they darken, they start to mask the light out a little bit more, and therefore your shadow areas won't get blocked up. It's just that the highlights will continue to catch up to them. And so it's a really nice process in that way, because you get a full range of tones without going sooty in your blacks, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's looking good. When you start to see the image reverse yourself through looking through the negative, you know it's starting to get there. And then as far as the other aspects of the exposure that you want to look for is basically around the edges here. You'll start to see it bronzing. And what that means is that it starts to look a little bit metallic or a little bit shiny in a way there. And you kind of know when it hits that point that it's pretty much at its development point. So let's see, we're coming up on about 1.5 minutes right now. And more than going with the time exposure right now, or the time checking, I'm going to go with looking at it and seeing what I think is going to be the best image. So anyway, letting it go a little bit longer here. Now another thing that you can do, you wouldn't want to do it here, but because the print frame has a split frame back, you can always open that back up and look at your print and see kind of how it's progressing. But you want to take it into the dark to do that, or into at least a place where there's no UV light, because if you open up the back and you pull the negative away, it's of course going to fog that side of the print. So yeah, it's getting really nice now. I can see that it's very possible that it's going to start bronzing in this area really soon. And that'll be the point where I know it's not going to go any further. I can pull it out then, and hopefully we'll have a really nice exposure then. It's looking pretty good. So I think what I'm going to do here in about 30 more seconds is pull this thing out, and we'll take it back into the darkroom. We'll start rinsing it in salt water. I will tone it, and then we will fix it. But yeah, you can see how the sun works fantastic as a exposure unit, right? I think that on the LED, my old exposure unit used to take almost 40 minutes to do a full exposure. The LED one, I get them in about 14 minutes. With the sun, I get about 3 minutes. So there we go. And this is later in the afternoon as well. If this was closer to noon, it would be really burning a lot quicker than this. So I think that's about it. Let's take it into the place and we'll see what it looks like, all right? Okay, so it's time to see what we've got here. You know, as you can see from outside, it's gotten quite dark around the edges, so this is the grand reveal here. So I'm gonna pull it out. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, so here, this is the image that we got. As you can see right there, it's pretty nice tonal range. It's looking pretty dark up in some of these areas, but those will lighten as I process it. And as I said before, we're going to be processing this in salt water. So it's looking really good. Let's go over there and do it right now, all right? Okay, so as I had mentioned before, this is a printing out process. So this is not a developing out process. We really don't have to develop this image. But what we do have to do is process it and then fix it. But I'm going to also tone it in between. Now to process this, I've already mixed up a fair amount of salt water here. Now I use non-iodized kosher salt, as you can see here. You don't want to use the iodized salt at all. Preferably coarse kosher salt works best. And the way I mix it is about 40 grams to 500 milliliters. So what I do is I rinse this print in the salt water. Now, when you're rinsing it, I kind of keep it agitated, and then I dump it out, and then I put some more salt water in, because what I'm trying to do is wash out all of the unused silver. Now, sometimes you can see that as a bit of cloudiness in the water as well when you're washing out, and it's best to continue washing until you've gotten rid of that cloudiness. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move it over into this middle bath, which is my toner. Now this is a gold toner that I'm using. It's from a kit that I got from Bostic & Sullivan. I'll leave the link below for you. But basically it's a mixture of gold chloride and ammonium thiocyanate as something to use to make it more alkaline, because this toning process likes to be more alkaline. So what we're going to do is tone it in here for a little bit, then we're going to go back and rinse it, and then we're going to go back and put it into the fixer. So the reason that we do this is because this is silver nitrate that we're making this with, and the toner tends to be, it tends to extend the life of the silver. It basically coats the silver molecules with gold chloride molecules, and therefore it's not as susceptible to UV light. So anyway, with that, let's get on with this. Into the salt water it goes. Now, as you can see, once it's in the salt water, it starts to lighten a little bit. And that's one of the reasons that you want to go a little bit longer on your exposure when you're initially exposing this. And out in the sun, it was easy to do that. But as you can see, even in the highlight areas, it still burned in some tone, which is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want anything clipped out here. Now, another thing, as I explained earlier when I was making the print, it's a self-masking process. So it tends to, in the areas that are most dark, once they start to get darker, they start to mask themselves out and they don't get any darker while they're waiting, so to speak, for the highlights to catch up. So as you can see here, the shadow detail, the shadows have really nice detail in them. Nothing goes black. And then also in the highlights, I still have also detail. So basically, this is kind of a perfect exposure. I really like it. So anyway, I'm going to dump out a little bit of that. I'm going to put in a little bit more salt water. Basically, we're washing out that unused silver. As I said before, you also want to keep it agitated. It's not the kind of process that you can just let sit in the trays like that, because it tends to get mottling and maybe some watermarks, that kind of thing. So what you want to do is keep it agitated as you're working. Now, as you can see, it's getting a little bit more kind of reddish. We're going to dump it one more time, give it another slosh of salt water. And then what I'm going to do is rinse it out with some clear water, and then we will go into the toner. Okay, so let's give it a little bit of a clear rinse here. And into the toner it goes. Now, once it gets into the toner, you're also going to notice some differences start to happen. You know, it will start to change color. Now, with the gold toner, it will go all the way from sort of a ruby color all the way to a bluish purple, depending on how long you leave it in the toner. And I like to go someplace in between. And one of the things that when you're in the toner like this, you'll start to see, sometimes in the mid-tones and even in some of the highlight areas, you'll start to see the color change a little bit. And that's because there's not as much silver in that area, and that's where the toner can start kind of working first. But it also tends to be where I like to pull it out, pull it out of the solution, because what will happen is a little bit of toning continues on, and what I've noticed is that through the fixing and then the drying process, that it tends to get a little bit more intense. So I don't like it to go too far, just for my own taste. I like to keep it kind of warm looking. Now I'm going to leave it in here a little bit longer. You can see it's starting to get a little bit more orange. That's kind of a sign that it's taking on the tone as well, at least in my experience. Now what I'm going to be doing from here, once I pull it out of the toner, is I'm going to go back, I'm going to make a quick rinse of just clear water, and then we're going to go into the fixing bath. Okay, I've now had this in here about 3 or 4 minutes. I didn't time it, but I think this is about the point where I'm going to pull it out of the solution. And I'm going to give it a quick rinse, and then I will go into the fixing bath. And I'll fix it for probably 10 minutes. And then, wow, this is really beautiful. You can see. I'll fix this for probably about 10 minutes. And then I'll give it a wash for about 10 minutes. And then I will dry it and come back here to you and show you the final results, all right? Stick with me. Okay, well, as I said, I was gonna bring it out to you when it was dry, and it's really nice. It's a good little print, and I'm real pleased with it. Made with the sun. And let's see, bring it over this camera so you can see. Now, I was able to keep it kind of on the warm side. I didn't tone it too long. I can see how in the mid-tones here, how it went a little bit kind of purplish, but I kind of like that. And anyway, all in all, it's a really great little print. So thanks for sticking with me today. It was a lot of fun. I'm gonna do more with this salted printing process. But for now, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, tell a friend, and get to work on your own stuff. I'm hoping you're having fun at home in your own darkrooms and in your own front yard with the sun. All right? Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.